Yo, this might just be one of the wildest stories in hip-hop family history, and it's got fans completely shook. We're talking about Eminem, the rap god himself, a man known for bearing his soul in lyrics that slice through pain, loss, and loyalty. But behind that cold, controlled exterior, there's a deep emotional storm that's been brewing for years. Because the truth about why Eminem adopted two daughters isn't just heartwarming. It's dark, messy, and nothing like what the media ever told you. See, fans always thought Marshall Mathers adopted Elena and Stevie out of love and loyalty, a simple family story. But insiders say it's way more complicated than that. We're talking family betrayal, hidden addictions, and secrets that could have destroyed everything he built. Sources close to the Mathers circle claim that the real reason behind these adoptions started with a devastating event, something that left Em with no choice but to step in and protect two innocent lives, even if it meant cutting off people he once called family. And when the truth finally came out, even his closest friends said, "Bro, this ain't just parenting, this is redemption, revenge, and regret all rolled into one." Buckle up, because what you're about to hear might change how you see Eminem forever. It's 2002. Eminem is at the height of his fame. Platinum plaques, sold-out arenas, a global fan base hanging on every lyric he spits. But behind the scenes, while the world's chanting his name, his home life is falling apart. Marshall Mathers, the man the world calls Eminem, sits alone in his Detroit mansion at 3 a.m. A notebook open, a half-empty bottle of Mountain Dew beside him, and a silence so heavy it feels like it's breathing. He's just come off the anger management tour, but he's not thinking about the shows. He's thinking about family. See, everyone knew Em had a complicated relationship with Kim, his on and off wife, his childhood love, and the mother of his daughter, hailiejade. But what most fans didn't know is that Kim's twin sister, Dawn, was fighting her own demons and losing. Dawn had been battling addiction for years, disappearing for weeks at a time, leaving behind a little girl who didn't understand why mommy wasn't there. That little girl's name was Elena. Eminem had watched it all. The missed birthdays, the crying phone calls, the moments when Haley would ask, "Daddy, where's cousin Lainey?" He'd try to answer, but his voice always broke before he could. According to people close to the Mathers family, that was the breaking point. One night, Kim showed up crying. She told him Dawn had overdosed and been rushed to the hospital. "Marshall," she said, trembling, "she's not going to make it this time." He froze. For a man who'd built his career on expressing pain, he suddenly had no words. When he reached the hospital, the fluorescent lights hit like a punch. Dawn lay pale, motionless. Doctors said she might not wake up. And in that moment, as he looked down at his sister-in-law, a woman who'd been part of his chaotic life for decades, something shifted in him. He whispered under his breath, "If she doesn't make it, I got her kid. No matter what." And that was it. That was the night everything changed. For the next few days, he barely slept. He sat by Dawn's bedside, scribbling lyrics on hospital napkins. One of those lines, "My tears don't fall, they crash around me," would later evolve into an unreleased verse fans would never hear. But Dawn didn't make it. And true to his word, Eminem didn't hesitate. He took Elena in, legally adopting her within months. The media would later paint it as a selfless act, a man with millions giving a lost child a new life. But insiders say it was much deeper than that. It wasn't about fame or money or image, and it was guilt. Marshall blamed himself. He felt like he could have helped sooner, said one friend who spoke anonymously years later. He'd seen Dawn slipping but didn't know how to fix it, so when he took Elena in, it wasn't charity. It was redemption. But that redemption came with consequences. Kim, still battling her own issues, began spiraling again. She felt like Marshall's adoption of Elena was a silent judgment, as if he was saying, "I can be a better parent than anyone in your family." The fights grew darker. Doors slammed, voices cracked, and words like "control freak" and "fake savior" echoed through the house. At one point, Kim screamed, "You're just trying to look like a hero. You're doing this for your image." Eminem snapped back, "I'm doing it because nobody else will." And that moment became another fracture in their already broken marriage. Meanwhile, Elena, just a child, didn't understand the chaos around her. To her, Uncle Marshall was just Uncle M. He'd take her to the studio, buy her ice cream, let her sit in on recording sessions. She'd giggle when he rapped fast, calling it word magic. Haley and Elena became inseparable. Sisters. Not cousins. They'd share the same toys, same bedtime stories, and the same father figure who was now balancing his career and 2 growing girls while the world expected him to stay the angry rapper. But what the public didn't see was the toll. Eminem was unraveling. Between court battles with Kim, the pressure of fame, and sleepless nights worrying about 2 daughters who'd already seen too much pain, he felt himself drowning. He started writing again, but this time, not for the charts. He wrote letters to Dawn, to his younger self, to his daughters. In one letter that reportedly still sits locked in a drawer, he wrote, "I couldn't save everyone, but I'll save them, no matter what it costs me." And that promise, that quiet vow, would shape everything that came next. Because years later, when life threw another curveball his way, that vow would be tested again. By 2005, Eminem was fighting his own demons: addiction, depression, fame fatigue. But even as he struggled, he never let go of his family. He'd take Haley and Elena to the park, away from cameras, trying to give them moments of normal life. Still, deep down, he knew his world was built on chaos, and it was only a matter of time before another storm hit. And when it did, it would come from someone he never expected. A few years later, Kim called him again. Same tone, same tremble in her voice. But this time, it wasn't about Dawn. It was about Stevie, a child who didn't even know who they were yet, trapped in the middle of another tangled, painful family story. Because just when Eminem thought he'd found peace by saving one life, another child's world was about to fall apart. And once again, the only person who could pick up the pieces was him. It's 2010, a quiet morning in Detroit. Eminem has just returned from the studio after finishing what would become Recovery, one of his most personal albums ever. The sun's coming up, coffee's brewing, and for the first time in a long time, things feel calm. But peace never stays long in Eminem's world. The phone rings. It's Kim. Her voice is shaky, that familiar edge of panic he's come to know too well. "Marshall," she whispers, "we need to talk." It's about Whitney. He frowns. "Whitney? What happened?" There's a long pause. Then, Kim says something that knocks the air out of him. She doesn't know who her real dad is. And I can't do this alone anymore. For a moment, Marshall can't breathe. The name Whitney, the youngest child he's seen grow up around the house, Kim's daughter from another relationship, suddenly takes on a new weight. He sits down staring into space. "You mean, you're saying..." Kim cuts him off. "I don't even know Marshall. I don't know who to tell her she is. I messed everything up." In that instant, the man who's fought the world, the courts, the critics, is just a dad again. A confused, broken dad trying to figure out how to protect a child from the pain of adult mistakes. Over the next few weeks, the truth unravels. DNA tests, private talks, and late-night tears confirm it. Whitney's biological father had walked away years ago. Kim was falling apart again, her battles with substance abuse resurfacing. And now a little kid, scared, lost, and innocent, was asking the same question Elena once had: "Where's my dad?" And that's when it hit Marshall. He couldn't let another kid feel unwanted. Not again. Friends say that was the moment the decision was made. Not in court, not on paper, but in his heart. He started showing up more. School meetings, doctor appointments, birthdays. Slowly, Uncle Marshall became Dad. The transition wasn't easy. It was confusing, emotional, and messy. But in his quiet, protective way, Eminem began taking care of Stevie like his own. Then, one day, Kim broke down completely. She sat across from him at the kitchen table, tears rolling down her face. "You're a better parent than me," she whispered. "They need you more than they need me." He didn't say anything. He just nodded, and because deep down he already knew. That same year, Eminem filed paperwork to legally adopt Whitney. He gave them the same love, the same protection, and eventually, the same name. Whitney would later go by Stevie Lane, and the world wouldn't even know the full truth until years later. But behind that legal decision was a lot of pain the public never saw. Kim was still struggling, in and out of rehab, facing her own demons. Eminem tried to help her, but he'd learned something from Dawn's tragedy years before. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. And yet, despite it all, he refused to give up on her completely. There's a story one of M's close friends once told, how he came home one night after a long recording session, exhausted, ready to collapse. But when he walked in, he found Stevie sitting at the kitchen counter, coloring. They looked up and said softly, "Dad, do you think I'm weird?" Eminem froze. "Why would you say that?" Stevie shrugged, eyes filling with tears. "'Cause I don't look like anyone. And kids say I'm not really part of the family." For a second, time stopped. Em walked over, knelt down, and looked Stevie in the eyes. "Hey," he said quietly. "You're mine. You've always been mine. Don't ever forget that." Stevie smiled, small, unsure, but real. And that's when it clicked for him. All the fame, all the Grammys, all the rap god titles, none of it mattered. This was what legacy meant, but the world wasn't as kind. When the media caught wind of the second adoption, the tabloids ran wild with headlines. Eminem's secret family, Kim's chaos, who's the real father? Fans were confused. Critics speculated. Some accused him of playing the perfect dad role for publicity. Others called it damage control for his image. Em ignored it all, but inside he was hurting. He'd worked so hard to build a safe home, only for the outside world to twist it into another spectacle. In the studio, he started writing again. Angry, emotional verses about fatherhood, pain, and loyalty. He never released most of them, but insiders say those sessions birthed some of his most heartfelt, unreleased material. He'd rap about guilt, about fear, one producer said years later. He'd say stuff like, "I couldn't save the world, but I can save my girls." And every time, his voice would crack at the end. The truth is, Eminem wasn't just raising 3 kids, he was raising pieces of himself. Haley was his heart. Elena was his redemption. Stevie was his proof that love didn't need blood to be real. But as the years went on, the weight of being everyone's savior began to break him. He isolated himself, staying home in Detroit, barely going out, refusing interviews. To the public, he was just Eminem, the legend who dropped bars about pain and made millions. But behind closed doors, he was just Marshall, trying to make breakfast, do homework, and keep his family from falling apart again. And while his daughters brought him peace, Kim's spiral continued. In 2015, news broke that Kim had survived a near-fatal car accident, a suspected suicide attempt. When Eminem got the call, sources say he didn't hesitate. He rushed to the hospital, the same hospital where Dawn had died years before. He sat by her bed again, staring at the monitors, the steady beep echoing like déjà vu. For hours, he didn't say a word. He just watched her breathe, tears streaming down his face. Later, he'd tell a friend, "I've lost enough people. I can't lose her too, even if we're not together." And that moment, that fragile, silent night, changed everything. After Kim's recovery, they started rebuilding their relationship. Not as lovers, but as parents. 2 broken people bound by 3 children who needed both of them to survive. They'd visit each other quietly, away from cameras, often sitting in the same living room they once screamed in. Kim would bring food. Marshall would play music. The kids would laugh again, and slowly the family began to heal. But healing doesn't erase history. And as the girls grew older, they started asking harder questions. Why did you adopt me? Where's my real mom? Who's my real dad? Eminem never dodged those questions. He told them the truth. Not the messy tabloid version, but the one that came from his heart. He said, "I adopted you because I love you. That's all that matters." But deep down, he knew that one day, the world would start asking those same questions too. And when it did, he'd have to decide how much truth he was ready to share. Because what the public saw as a headline, Eminem adopts 2 daughters, was actually a story built on heartbreak, forgiveness, and survival. And as fame started to fade and family became his only focus, Eminem made one silent promise to himself. They saved me more than I ever saved them. It's 2017. Social media rules the world and there's nowhere to hide. Even the most private moments can explode into headlines in seconds. For Eminem, who spent years carefully shielding his daughters from the spotlight, that reality was terrifying. The leak started innocently enough. A paparazzi shot outside a Detroit cafe. Elena, now a teenager, was seen laughing with Stevie while walking home from school. The photo itself was harmless, but captions began swirling. Eminem's secret daughters? Within hours, the story went viral. Fans flooded Reddit threads, Twitter exploded, and YouTube was buzzing with speculation. Headlines screamed, "Eminem's hidden family revealed." Who are Elena and Stevie? Kim's chaos creates secret legacy? For a man who spent his life controlling his narrative through lyrics and interviews, losing control felt like a punch to the gut. His publicist called him in a panic. "Marshall, we need a statement. Right now, fans are losing it." Eminem leaned back in his chair, exhausted. He had spent years keeping Hailey, Elena, and Stevie safe. He didn't want the world to turn them into gossip fodder, but he also knew he couldn't ignore it. That night, in his Detroit home, he gathered the girls. The living room was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. He looked at them, a heavy weight on his shoulders. "You might hear a lot of things tomorrow," he said softly. "People might say stuff that isn't true. But I want you to know, I adopted you because I love you. Nothing else matters." Elena, 15, nodded, understanding the gravity. Stevie, younger but perceptive, clung to his hand. Hailey, now 21, smiled with a mix of pride and worry. They were a family, and no one could take that away. But the media didn't care about emotions. They were relentless. Tabloids ran wild theories. Some claimed Eminem adopted the girls to cover up family scandals. Others alleged Kim was being replaced by a controlling stepdad figure. Social media users speculated about the girls' biological parents, their schooling, and their private lives. Fans were divided. Some praised Eminem as a hero for taking in kids in need. Others criticized him for keeping secrets or controlling family narratives. The backlash was intense and emotions ran high. Through it all, Eminem stayed silent publicly, but the story began to leak in subtle ways through his music. In a surprise interview, he hinted at his role in the girls' lives. "I've done my best to be there when nobody else could. That's all I can say." Inside, however, he was struggling. The girls' safety was his top priority, and every new headline felt like a threat. He had to make decisions quickly, whether to let the world know more or continue shielding them. Then came the blow nobody expected. A former friend and associate of Kim leaked private details about Elena's early years and Stevie's adoption. The internet exploded. Private family photos, diary entries, even hospital records were rumored to have been shared. The Mathers household was thrown into chaos. Eminem's manager urged legal action, while the girls were increasingly anxious about friends and classmates discovering the truth. Elena confronted her father one evening. "Dad, what if they hate me? Or think I'm fake?" Eminem shook his head, holding back tears. "You're real. You're mine. And nobody can take that away." Meanwhile, Hailey called him later that night, furious. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have helped protect them." "I wanted to," he said quietly. "But I also wanted them to have a childhood away from the world. That's all I've ever wanted." Even Kim, despite their fractured relationship, reached out. She admitted she felt guilty for how public things had become. But instead of resentment, she and Eminem agreed to protect the girls together, forming a fragile alliance against the media storm. Despite the turmoil, the family pulled closer. Eminem began crafting a personal plan to reclaim the narrative, using his music as a shield and storytelling tool. He recorded in secret, writing songs that spoke directly about love, responsibility, and redemption. Songs that would never make it to the charts but became his emotional diary. Yet the drama didn't stop there. Fans began digging into the girls' social media, trying to connect dots about their school, friends, and hobbies. Rumors spread that Elena was secretly recording music, following in her father's footsteps. Some claimed Stevie had already written poems that rivaled Eminem's lyricism. Eminem watched it all, a mix of pride and fear bubbling inside him. On one hand, the attention validated his daughter's importance. On the other, it threatened their innocence, something he had fought so hard to preserve. At a particularly low moment, he confided to a close friend, "I feel like every decision I've made, every moment I've fought for them, is being twisted into a story I never wanted told." The friend reassured him, "Marshall, you saved them. That's the truth." And no headline can ever change that. Slowly, Eminem learned to navigate the storm. He refused interviews, kept the girls off social media, and built physical and emotional boundaries. But he also realized something profound. The adoptions had changed him as much as they changed the girls. He wasn't just a rapper. He wasn't just a celebrity. He was a father who had stared into the abyss of tragedy multiple times and decided to fight. For Elena, for Stevie, and for Hailey. And as the media buzzed, fans speculated, and rumors flew, the world began to see a new side of Eminem. One shaped not by anger, fame, or lyrics, but by heart, sacrifice, and quiet heroism. Even when critics accused him of being controlling or secretive, insiders knew the truth. Every action he took, every decision he made, was about shielding his daughters from a world that could be cruel and unforgiving. By the end of 2017, the storm had calmed, for now. Headlines faded, rumors died down, and Eminem could finally breathe. But the experience left scars, a constant reminder that fame and family rarely coexist peacefully. He would often look at the girls. Hailey typing away at a laptop, Elena sketching quietly, Stevie humming to herself, and think, they're my reason, my purpose, and nothing else matters. Yet deep inside, he knew the world would eventually ask more questions. Questions about loyalty, love, and the sacrifices he'd made. And when that day came, he would have to decide how much of the story to reveal. Because even a legend like Eminem can't hide forever. Not from fans, not from the media, and certainly not from the truth. And that truth, as we'll see in part 4, is more emotional, more shocking, and more personal than anyone could imagine. It's 2023, and Eminem sits in his Detroit studio, older, quieter, and wiser. The platinum plaques still line the walls, but they no longer define him. His legacy is no longer just measured in record sales or rap battles won. Now, it's measured in something far more profound, the family he fought to protect. Elena, now 21, has her own world but remains deeply connected to her father. She's smart, resilient, and grounded, a reflection of the love and stability Eminem provided during her most turbulent years. Stevie, a few years younger, is beginning to explore her creativity, often spending hours with pencils, paints, or quietly singing along to music in her room. And Hailey, older and wiser, has become a guiding presence for her sisters, bridging gaps and soothing anxieties that come with fame and public scrutiny. Despite the calm, the journey to this point was anything but smooth. There were nights when Eminem questioned everything. Did he do the right thing? Could he have done more for Kim, for Dawn, for the girls? Those doubts were relentless, gnawing at him even as he performed in front of thousands of screaming fans. One evening, after a family dinner at home, Elena turned to him and asked the question that had haunted Eminem for years. Dad, did you ever regret adopting us? Eminem paused, taking in her eyes, feeling the weight of every sleepless night, every courtroom battle, every tear shed over lost loved ones. And then, with the quiet confidence of a man who had fought monsters in his past and in himself, he replied, never. Not for a second. You girls saved me in ways I can't even put into words. And if I had to do it all over again, I would. The room fell silent, a peaceful kind of silence, the kind that only comes from raw honesty. Stevie smiled shyly, and Hailey reached over to squeeze her father's hand. They were family. Not because of blood alone, but because of unwavering love and sacrifice. Insiders say the adoptions had a profound effect on Eminem's artistry as well. The man who once rapped about rage and pain began to explore themes of responsibility, love, and redemption in his private work. Though much of it never reached the public, friends confirm that these unpublished tracks were some of the most emotionally charged pieces of his career. One producer who worked closely with him said, "You could hear the difference. There's vulnerability in every line. You can tell he's thinking about his kids, about family, about making things right." As for Kim, she and Eminem finally found a fragile balance. While they never returned to the intense, romantic relationship of their youth, they became partners in parenting, allies in protecting the daughters from public scrutiny, and even occasional friends. The fights didn't disappear completely, but they became more constructive. Arguments focused on planning birthdays, school schedules, and family vacations, rather than accusations and jealousy. Elena later confided in a close friend that what mattered most was knowing her father had chosen her, every single day, despite the chaos. Stevie echoed that sentiment, saying, "He didn't have to adopt me. He didn't have to step into a situation so messy, but he did. And that means everything." And Hailey, mature beyond her years, often reflects on how her father's choices shaped not only their lives, but also the person she's becoming, resilient, compassionate, and fiercely loyal. Eminem himself has become a quiet figure of reflection. Away from the cameras, away from the tabloids, he has begun speaking openly about the lessons of fatherhood, about sacrifice, about stepping in when the world fails you, and about the unbreakable bond that forms when someone chooses love over fear. He once told a journalist in an exclusive interview, carefully choosing his words, "People only see the surface, they see the fame, the anger, the albums. But for me, the real story, the part that matters, is making sure my daughters never feel the same emptiness I felt growing up. That's why I adopted them, not for attention, not for image, but because love demands action." Fans, too, began to understand the depth of Eminem's choices. Social media posts praising him for his dedication surfaced. Heartfelt messages poured in from people who had been inspired to take action for children in need, and a quiet shift in public perception began. It wasn't about fame or spectacle anymore. It was about humanity. Even some former critics softened. They recognized the bravery it took to step into a family already fractured by loss and addiction and to make it whole. That bravery, they realized, wasn't about public image. It was about personal redemption. Despite all the closure, the family knew that challenges would never fully disappear. Adolescence, fame, and curiosity would continue to bring questions and complications. Yet the foundation Eminem built was strong: love, trust, and a commitment to being present. One particularly touching moment occurred during a quiet Christmas morning. Eminem watched as the girls exchanged gifts. Elena had made a scrapbook of memories: hospital visits, studio sessions, late-night talks, every moment of their shared life. Stevie had painted a portrait of the three girls together, smiling, holding hands. Hailey had written a poem about the sacrifices their father had made. Eminem sat back, overwhelmed with emotion, and whispered to himself, This is why it's all worth it." And in that moment, the legend of Eminem, the rapper, the public figure, the rap god, merged seamlessly with the quiet, tender reality of Marshall Mathers, the father who adopted 2 daughters to save their lives and, in the process, saved his own soul. The adoptions were never just legal acts. They were emotional battles won in silence, moments of courage in the face of fear, and a testament to the transformative power of love. As he looks toward the future, Eminem knows the story isn't over. There will always be challenges, always new questions from fans, always the pull of fame and the shadow of the past. But he also knows this truth, a truth he's lived every day for nearly 2 decades. I chose love. I chose family. And that choice, that's the legacy I want to leave behind. And that's the story. Fans. Behind the headlines, behind the rumors, behind the paparazzi flashes, Eminem's decision to adopt Elena and Stevie was far more than a gesture. It was an act of courage, love, and redemption that reshaped his life forever. So there you have it. The story behind why Eminem adopted Elena and Stevie isn't just a headline. It's a journey through heartbreak, chaos, and redemption. It's about a man who rose from his own pain, stared into the abyss, and chose love over fear, family over fame, and courage over convenience. Fans are shocked to see this side of the rap legend, the side that cried in silence, fought invisible battles, and never let his daughters feel the emptiness he once knew. The Mathers family was tested by addiction, betrayal, and public scrutiny, but through it all, Eminem proved that fatherhood is about action, not just words. Elena, Stevie, and Hailey are living proof of his sacrifices, a legacy built not on charts or awards, but on unwavering love, protection, and loyalty. And while the world only saw the rap god, inside the walls of their Detroit home, Marshall Mathers was simply a dad, showing up every single day. Now it's your turn. What do you think about Eminem's journey as a father? Was he a hero, or do you think the family drama could have been handled differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take. And if you're ready for more jaw-dropping, behind-the-scenes stories from the world of hip-hop and celebrity drama, make sure you like this video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story that the mainstream media won't tell you. Because this is just one story of love, redemption, and legacy, and trust us, the drama in hip-hop doesn't stop here. Stay tuned, because the next story is going to be even bigger, even wilder, and even more unforgettable.